Hey guys, get look at it's me, Angie, or here I use it as Langie Marie. So, as you can tell by the title, today we're going to be talking about an important topic. It's mental health, and trigger warning, we are going to be talking about anxiety, depression, and suicide. So if you don't feel comfortable with watching this video, click out. Just click out of this video. And it's okay if you don't want to watch it. I have other videos you could watch as well. But today we're going to be talking about my story with anxiety and depression. Okay, so yeah, let me get started. Alright, so I remember feeling, I think I've always known like something was wrong because I was always like isolated, about myself being isolated, like self-isolating myself and just being in my room even when I was little. Anxiety of just like being around people, even my own family, and yeah, not really feeling good about myself, like knowing something was wrong with me. Yeah, and then I think for me it got worse in middle school, of course, because it's like your hormones and dealing with everything, and especially since like in middle school it was tough for my family, since in middle school my dad was deployed, and so it was tough because it's like I was a teenager, me and my mom were always butting heads, and my little brother was only 4. My dad was away, so of course we were all worried, especially like the time that he was deployed, it was like really bad in Iraq. And so, and plus like he couldn't tell us things, so when he did, it was like very anxious feeling. But yeah, it was like really a lot that I was like very depressed, listening to like depressing music, like even my dad would be worried like things I would say or like stuff I would do. But definitely I remember that it was in middle school where I started to cut myself. I would of course use the razor. I remember specifically, I think I was in sixth grade. I think I either had an argument with my mom or something like that, and I just went to the bathroom and just started to cut myself with the razor. And at that point, it felt good. Thinking about it, sorry, it felt good to do it at the time because it was like feeling like a sense of relief, but also it was like the beginning stage of when things went wrong, I would start harming myself. And then at the same time, it was like later progressed. Of course, I would still use a razor, but when things went wrong or something like happened that wasn't expected, or like I was feeling very grouchy or not like myself later in life, I remember it was then progressed out. Like I cut myself, but then like things would happen that I would just start hitting myself like on the head, and like just like harming my own self, like whether it was like hitting myself with on the head or like hitting myself with like an object of something, just to like, even in middle school I remember like wanting to end my life because of how bad it was. And then in high school it was like bad as well, because again, like living in the military life, like I never had like that stable home life, because like we would always move, and so not having that stability, like yes I had my family, but it was like one thing of like not having a stability in terms of having a house where you just stay for most of your life, you know that's where you're gonna stay at. It's always difficult in terms of like moving around every 2 years or every year in one case. High school for me was tough because I started high school in one place and ended high school in another place, and it was of course like moving around and everything spiked up my anxiety and my depression, even though I didn't know it. I remember in high school I would have full-on panic attacks because of the pressure of doing well in school and home life in terms of like my dad was in the military at the time, so again he was deployed, and just being like a good daughter in terms of helping my mom out with my little brother and with in general. Yeah, I remember like at one time in class, like I had a panic attack because I hated like doing speeches in front of the whole class. It was a group project and I had a panic attack. And I had to go, and she's a nurse and everything, and they had to call my mom and stuff. And I just like, it was like so bad that it was sucked, because then I had people behind my back saying that I just faked it. But it's like, how would I fake a panic attack? It's like difficult, because also in high school I was in denial. That's the one thing. I was very in denial that I had anxiety and depression, because like most anxiety, because you know, like the stigma with it, and then of course it was like teenager being like on social media and Tumblr, like in a way of like anxiety, because it's like never talked about in the Latinx community, and then like in my family it's like of course like not talked about either, because it's like a thing that doesn't happen. Or like if you have anxiety or something, if you need like most of my, like a lot of my family and my dad's side is religious. I grew up around like religious people, and then you'd be like, oh, you just need to go to church. You just need to go to church. And then I was like, okay, I'll do that, maybe that will help. So I did that. But then like also my doctor was had tried to convince me to go on medication, but also too I was like, no, medication, no, I don't want to be dependent on medication. What if this, what if that? And of course I was a teenager, so what was I supposed to know? But then I got to college, and in college it got so bad. I remember in college, basically my depression just spiked. I remember because I was like being away from home, even though I was like an hour away, but it was still tough because I didn't have a car. I would always have to like talk to my parents in terms of like what works for them and what works for me to go home. I was doing really bad in classes. Like it was such a change in atmosphere and in class, and then like plus I was like, I felt like obviously coming from where I went to high school and coming to a big college was different, especially with like not being around people who look like you, you know, like coming from a primarily like black and brown high school, to a primarily white college was difficult. So that happened. Like I would always be in my dorm room. I would go up, I was uncomfortable, I tried joining groups. Yeah, and then in college I lost two grandparents, one my sophomore year and the other one my junior year. So it was like a year difference. Yeah, it was my junior year? Yeah, it was my junior year. But and then in college, I knew I was like, okay, it was like after the death of my grandpa, I went to see a therapist, and it was okay, but at that time, the mental health situation at my college wasn't that great, and then I decided to like, nothing else would help, so then I decided to get on medication. And I got into the medication. I wasn't on Zoloft first, but then it was no. But then it was really bad, because that's when everything got worse. At that time, I was also stressed, so I began again to hurting myself. Sorry, my camera cut off. Yeah, I began hurting myself, and it was like I remember it was so bad that I remember reaching out for help to one of my really good friends. And then the day after Christmas, I remember it was like I began scratching myself to hurt myself because something set me off. And I just wanted to die right there. The day after Christmas, I'll never forget it. And like, I cried out for help, like I was screaming, crying that my parents came in, and like that, I think that's when they realized something was wrong. After I graduated, it's so hard, because I moved back home, and it was like tough, because like I was commuting to my first job, and while I was working at my first job, I had a mental breakdown. That something was changed inside. It was like a switch that I just started to cut myself with keys, and I was like crying. I was cutting myself with keys. I was hitting myself. I remember like my mom came in being like, "What are you doing? ¿Qué estás haciendo?" And then my dad coming in, and he was like, wanted to take me to a local hospital where there was like a mental ward. And my mom stopped him because she didn't know what was gonna happen. And like I remember like it was such a haze. It's like those moments that to me I remember it was like a haze. It was like blurred, and it's like how it is like even now with it's like still tough because that happened, and like I feel like such a disappointment. And even this year I lost my job, my second full-time job out of college, and I felt like such a disappointment that that's when I went downhill. Like I started cutting myself again, hurting myself through like drinking a lot to cope with not just being home with. I remember just even like not eating on purpose, which was like another issue that when I suffered when I was younger, like wanting to be like others, being skinny. It was like body issues that I'm working on. It was so tough. It is so tough with mental health, especially now with the working. It's been taking like such a mental toll that like there's days that I feel like I'm in a haze. I feel like a little hamster on a hamster wheel that like just keeps going. And it was like a few weeks ago where I had to listen to my body. Like my body and mind could not handle anymore, so I had to like take a mental health day. Like it was like such a blur, everything, like with everything going on and working. Being an essential worker and working, it was like my body was like, no, you can't do this anymore. It's tough every single day because you never know how you're gonna wake up or what happens. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to be all sad about it. It's just my experience. I just want to say that if you're someone that's going through a tough time, you could always DM me on my Instagram or Twitter. I'll link some resources down below. Yeah, like, yeah. Yeah. I'm actually thinking of when tattoo shops open again. I'm gonna get the comma tattoo that people get for mental health or for suicidal attempts, get it right here on my inner wrist. To remember to always be strong. I feel like that's one thing that like gets me like I want like I may look like the strongest person, the greatest person, but like on the inside you don't know what people are like. You don't know what I go through, or like even for people like the strongest people or like people that seem great may not on the inside may not be going through what they seem to appear. And yeah. Yeah, that's it for today's video. I will see you guys on the next one. And bye, adios, love you guys. Mwah.